Hello, Magdi. I don't have a question right now, but I just wanted to express my gratitude for being here and your guided meditation, your presence, and it's quite amazing, this gift of clarity. And just thank you.
It's always beautiful when we come together as friends, interested in truth. And what there is a saying, whenever two of you meet in my name, I am among you, something like that. Yeah. In fact, whenever we think about truth, we think about God. It's a blessing.
And so beautiful that we can agree that we can agree to disagree. It's not about being right or wrong, but just to explore, to inquire, and to just be open. This is so fascinating.
You know, at some level, we believe that our thoughts are our own and the other person's thoughts are their own. But in fact, all our thoughts are God's thoughts. They're the thoughts of the universe appealing to us. And our actions are the actions of the universe, of the cosmos. It's all God's doing. So how can we, from what vantage point can we resist God? Can we resist the absolute? So when we agree to disagree, the emphasis is on the agreement. I agree to disagree. Always agreeing. We also agree with what arises for us. It says, okay, it's time to move on, time to leave this relationship, time to go in a different direction. That also we say yes to that too. So we listen to the whole thing, what's arising to us from the world and what's arising to us internally. Because there is wisdom within that speaks to us. Just to beware not to channel the inner voice via your emotions, your negative emotions, because negative emotions are always tainted by the belief of separation, the belief in separation, defending, aggressing, blaming, judging. When your actions and your thoughts are being channeled through judgment and defense and aggression, then you have to sort of press the pause button and just be still for a moment. Because the true friendship, the true love, it never dies, it never increases or decreases, it's always on. The mind, on the other hand, the judgmental mind, the evaluating mind, I like this, I like that, why you did this, why did I do that, why you shouldn't. The mind, on the other hand, is a shade, an infinite shades of accepting, rejecting. And in a way, it has its function, it has its place, it's all serves some purpose. And sometimes the pain we experience also serves a purpose to point us, invite us to take a look, to explore, to examine. To invite the understanding, invite the wisdom to bring some clarity. And we don't hold on. We don't hold on. Because there is no body, no actual personal holding. There's no actual person. It's all imagination, belief that there is a me and a him or a her. What is it that feels wounded? It's always a me, a him, or a her. What is that me? If the body gets wounded, we go to the doctor, we bandage the body as best we can. But what is that other thing, whatever that is, it's the ghost. We don't want to live that as a ghost, enjoy the sunset, the sunrise. We want to enjoy friendship. We want to enjoy life.
It's just so amazing. For more than 50 years, I struggled so much with this ghost. I mean, just believing it to be myself. And it's such a gift to see that I don't need to define myself, that it doesn't need to make sense, that there's something that is more important.
When we go to the mind will always find something else that's more significant, because the mind is a field of activity. It's like a 2-year-old, you invite a 2-year-old at your house, they want to touch everything. They want to open every cupboard and pull every tissue out of the tissue box. The mind is like that. And these 50 years of whatever, assuming ourselves to be this or that, they had their place somehow. It was God's place. It's always God's place. There are no mistakes. It serves its function to bring us to this moment, to the understanding about the transparency of being, the understanding about the formless self, borderless, edgeless reality, which I am.
Thank you, Magdi.
Hi there, Magdi.
Hi.
So there seems to be an ongoing theme here in my exploration. I guess you could say in general it has to do with living the understanding. After having after being deeply immersed in it for many years and sort of going out in the world. And it's one thing to interact, so to speak, with other truth lovers in a meeting or a retreat or in a community of friends. But with the public or family and friends in particular, it's a very different, it could be a very different matter. It could be absolutely wonderful or really challenging. It brings up these questions like, okay, they are just an appearance in this one reality, but somehow this appearance seems to completely identify with being separate, and I have to find a way to kind of communicate, negotiate, be responsible, and then sort of recover from that whole ordeal sometimes when it gets difficult, or just being around that sort of
who is recovering?
Self-centeredness.
Who is recovering? I mean,
Sorry?
Who is it that is recovering or needs to recover? You see, when we are fluid, when we are like the ocean, when we are like the stream, when we are like the river, recovering, in life presents us with situations. You're talking about being established in the understanding, that we already have in your glimpses. Life presents you with opportunities, not to perceive another or judge another or evaluate another, but to live and to interact in whichever way things are appearing to you. And when there is a certain disharmony or a certain button that gets pushed or some complications or some difficulties, this is the exact time to take a close look at what you're assuming yourself to be. Because in the absence of assuming yourself to be anybody, an enlightened person or an unenlightened, whatever, in the absence of assuming yourself to be any particular person, there is an openness. There is an openness to the sunshine. There is an openness to a thunderstorm. There is an openness to friends who are truth lovers, and there is an openness for people who are in their political views and defending their political views and wanting to argue their political views. There is an openness to all of that. This does not mean that you need to get on board with this conversation. It doesn't mean that you need to remain in such a conversation. You could leave the conversation, but what is it that's remaining, that's affecting you is the question. If something is affecting you, what is this you that is being affected? This is the thing to look at, that it's an invitation to take a look at what remnants, what vasanas, what remaining tendencies to still holding on to. What is it that remains that you are holding on to? To see that within your own space and find your way to see through it and one could say even release it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of all that. It seems that well, there's a couple of different aspects to it. There are different kinds of relationships, and there's a different amount of time. I mean, it's certainly, I've seen I quickly recover. There's a faster, like going back to the, like what in Buddhism they call the Dharma and the Sangha, the understanding. Sometimes it helps to go back to that when you're feeling a little a little off balance from interaction with ignorance, and over time it all dissolves, and one is back in balance quicker.
Yes.
But I think it's particularly difficult if it's like a family member that cuts you off completely, and you have no way of communicating or don't know what to communicate. And it's
family knows how to get to your button, to push your button. You know, they have a direct path to that.
yeah, it's, I don't know, it's, you know, I have no problem with my siblings, but it's like someone that I haven't seen for a long time. You know, I still feel like I did something wrong, and which makes no sense from a non-dualist standpoint. There's no responsibility for the past. There's no one that did anything wrong. It's like some residue of, you know, like, what should I do?
And yet sometimes we realize that we did behave in a certain way that was not loving, not kind, and
yeah, out of our own,
and it's possible
blindness or whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes it's possible, you know, to say, you know, sorry, I acted in such a.
Well, I've already apologized, but
yeah, and then that's it. No, there's no need to. There's no need to expect any. You know, maybe your friend, you know, will acknowledge your apology and say not the problem, or maybe they just hold on to their wound or ignore it. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Well, it's this thing of communication again, though. Of I feel that something, what I didn't properly communicate. Like I there's still something that I could communicate to help, because they didn't understand the context. Since their context of life is so different from mine, they misconstrued what I was saying, which had to do with my path. They took it in a personal way. It's like I'm trying to bridge this enormous gap of understanding that it's not necessary to be there. And, you know, I feel that I'm being like almost narcissistic or irresponsible for not, or lacking in courage to be truthful no matter the consequences, and tell them how I see things. And yet every time I think of what I could say, I think how it won't be received. It'll be misconstrued again. And I go around and around. That's the dilemma.
Well, until you perceive a certain openness, you know, a certain direction that opens for you, you cannot move with clarity. So like if you're at an intersection, there are like, you know, 7 different different roads meeting at the circle, and you're looking at the signs. If you're going towards New York, you're looking until you see the sign that's pointing in the direction of New York. You don't know which way to go. So until there is some clarity about what is the proper action for you to take, then you don't. And if you don't have to take an action, then you don't. You just
well, that's how I'm proceeding right now. Is that I start to get some clarity, and then it fades, and so I'm kind of back at square one. So I wait, you know, for clarity, but so far there's no opening.
Yeah, it's like
from their side.
It's like you see a sign that says New York, but then you put on your glasses and you see it says New Jersey, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
It keeps changing.
So,
It's like, okay, but then I do manage. I mean, not. Let me. How do I say this? I will just forget about it and go on with my life. But then at some point, it gets picked up again. Um,
well, it's when it arises again, it's inviting you to take another look. It's like it's something knocking on your door. You know, as long as you're not coming
Again, it's like it's
from
a
a
sense
place
of
of being of having some personal identity. As long as you're not coming from a place where you are identified as a separate personal self. Because sometimes there is we revert back to the belief in being a me, and then we want to fix the me. We want to justify the actions of the personal self. As long as you're not using that model, then when when something visits you again, you take a look at it freshly in that moment. So what is it saying? What is it inviting me to do in this moment? How can I look
it's
at it freshly?
Magdi. It's kind of like this flipping back and forth between a sense of personal responsibility and this sense of freedom, which then everything out there is saying that's irresponsible or narcissistic to be in that kind of happy impersonal space where I don't care about anything and I'm just happily going about my business. But
Yeah.
it's like not the way of the world. And I know I'm like we're not of this world and yet we're in it. It's a very tricky thing to negotiate at times.
So in terms of this personal responsibility, there is there is no personal responsibility. But this does not mean that we act in whichever way, careless way. We act in ways that are caring, the ways that are inspired by intelligence, by love, by wisdom. And
Yeah, it's always in the moment. Ultimately, the only thing we can do.
yes. So it's
And yet we still have some accountability as a person for the past and the future, even though that person is not real.
with the past, we can only do so much. You don't want to get too wrapped up in the past. You
Certainly.
want to address something that arises to you concerning the past. You want to address it in a certain manner that doesn't repeat the past or get you like, let's say there was some interaction in the past with a family member, with my brother or whatever, and somehow it arises for me that my behavior with them was not very loving. And I find an opportunity to express my regret to my brother. I take that opportunity and I express it. But I don't know how it's going to be taken, what is going to happen next. I'm not going to get wrapped up into guilt, because guilt belongs to the me, that I'm the doer. No. There was a behavior that came to me in the past. It arose out of certain thoughts that I had at that moment. I didn't choose those thoughts, I didn't create those thoughts, but I acknowledge now that these thoughts were not very loving. So I express my sorrow, I move on without getting wrapped up into it. How the other person is going to take it, it's up to them. It's up to God. We move on. We don't want to spend too much time in the past, right? Because life is now, life is in the present, life is in this moment.
Well, if there isn't if they aren't giving me a clear signal of an opportunity, then at some point it may be my opportunity to, send them a text or message or whatever.
Okay, if that arises to you, wait a minute, I don't have an opportunity, I'm going to send an email to my brother, say, hey, how are you, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, it just arose to me that I was acting really stupidly, when I said such and such a thing. You express it and okay, done deal. But
well, I think
how he's going to take it, whether he's going to reply to it, not reply to it, hold on to his grudge, or be forgiving, it's up to him and up to God.
Is there any reason to explain things, or is that just not?
No, that's good. Because it's like every person is looking at situation from their own angle, and you're perceiving it this way, and they're perceiving the situation differently. And when you explain yourself, you're explaining your point of view, and they're hearing something else. I wouldn't. You express your apology. You apologize. That's it.
Why does it bother me so much that everyone's in their own world? It's like I would really love to communicate, and but because the opportunities.
What bothers you is the sense of separation. It's not other people being in their own world, because when you are not in your own world, there is nobody else who is in their own world. In fact, the mind appears to us. We are not in the world, and nobody is in the world. To perceive that people are in their own mind is just a way of speaking, but from the place of wisdom, there is no such thing. It's all God's doing. It's all the universal weather and the cosmic doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
People's minds is God's mind. Your mind, my mind is God's mind. So we're not in our mind. God is in our mind. God's mind appears to us. It appears to us as our mind, but we're not fabricating or manufacturing our own mind. We perceive thoughts, we perceive perceptions, we perceive sensations. There are beliefs, there are beliefs that, and they're not our personal beliefs, because there is no person who's holding on to these beliefs. It's all God's doing.
Yeah. So when we're seeing
The puppet, which is dancing down there, is a puppeteer that is making that puppet hold the stick and hit the other puppet on the head. You see, telling the other puppet, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that." It's the puppeteer as a metaphor.
So when we're seeing this supposed personal puppet as us, then it's like at the same time, it's all
We're overlooking the reality. We're overlooking consciousness. When we are perceiving a personal consciousness, we're confusing personal mind with consciousness. We're overlooking consciousness. We're conflating mind with consciousness.
yeah, and it's like the entire emphasis on psychology is, and I have friends who are psychologists, but it's on that personal mind. There's this assumption there's a mind here and there's a mind there, and so we're always
they're making their livelihood. It's a livelihood. It's a business. Psychotherapy has its function, and it's like some people repair dents in your car. Some people, some surgeons repairs cuts that you have, accidents that you have. A mechanic fixes your car, and the psychologist fixes your understanding and trying to harmonize you a little bit so that you repairs you a little bit so you can live a little bit more harmoniously in life with yourself and with others. It's a vocation.
It's like these supposed other minds are. It's like we reify them. Because we think, for whatever reason, because we identify, we really think that there are these entities out there.
Yes.
and we're imagining this. It's
right.
like it's all an imagination.
Yeah. So
like
psychotherapy,
in God's mind.
Psychotherapy is about harmonizing the imaginary me. So you say, well, okay, it's like a little boy that has an imaginary friend, and this friend scares him. So the mother says, oh, okay, here is some candy, here's some candy. So because your friend is scaring you, why don't you give your friend some candy? Then he'll be happy and he will be nicer to you, you see. So you give your imaginary friend some candy. And now your friend who's scaring you becomes less scary because they like the candy, they like you now. That's not what we're talking about, right? Anyway.
No, it's just helping people feel better temporarily.
Yes. It's what's
instead of
important
seeing the nature
is not to conflate consciousness with mind. Mind are infinite minds, infinite shades and shapes and colors, friendly, less friendly, thoughts and perceptions that are scary, some are less scary, all sorts of in the realm of manifestation. But in the realm of consciousness, there is only one reality, and all minds are just that reality. The minds of that reality. It's as if there is one mind manufacturing, creating, experiencing all minds. Like the ocean, a metaphor of the ocean and the waves. It's only water. And there is no particular wave that has a personal reality outside of the water.
Yeah, that distinction between mind and consciousness is so important, so fundamental. And and I've seen that for years, but so now it's more like seeing it in action
Yes.
in this display. This
Right. Whenever you are perceiving others that are ignorant, that's an ignorant thought right there.
yeah, in essence, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Nice talking to you.
You too.